Well, hey there. Glad you could come by. I've been told that I need to start talking to my peeps out there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just sit here and have a cup of coffee and talk to you for just a minute. Maybe tell you a story. What do you think about that? I think that would be good. But I'm going to start doing this on a fairly regular basis. Just trying to, make some headway and get people involved with what the channel is. I also got to quit saying that and all that other stuff. So I've got to learn how to speak on camera. That's what they tell me. Excuse me, I'm going to have a cup of coffee here. Now you may, while I'm drinking my coffee and talking to you, you may end up hearing something from the puppies. They may bark and carry on, and you might even see one up here. I don't know. It is very possible. But I did want to spend a little bit of time with you, and I think I'm gonna post this on the Family and Home channel because it feels more like family stuff, right? There I go with that right, and filler words. Anyway, more filler words. My story that I want to tell you is I brought it up in my last video. If you didn't see that, it'll be right up here, right there. I think I'm pointing to the left. And it was about my parents. And it's a story I tell because it's kind of cute, and it really means something to me. My mother was German, and my father was from South Carolina, and he grew up. Just to give you a little bit of background on him, he was born in 1920, and his family and he grew up in the Depression era. And for many years, he wouldn't eat fish because when he grew up, for 2 years, all they had was smoked sardines in a big barrel. And that's all they had to eat, smoked sardines for 2 years. So he's like, I don't want any more fish. Don't ever want any more fish. I got it, right? It was funny because my mother at one point, she made a casserole and gave it to him, and he was just eating it up. He said, "Man, this is so good. This is some good casserole." Had some what he thought, I guess, was chicken in there. Well, it was tuna. He just didn't realize it, but it was funny. But anyway, so he was born in 1920. Right, and if you do the math, he was 21 when D-Day, when Pearl Harbor happened, and so he went and immediately joined the Army Air Force, and at that time it was the Army Air Force, right? And there we go. So it was the Army Air Force, and he went over to Germany to fight. He got there, and he was part of the Battle of the Bulge at one point with Patton. It was kind of a big thing. But towards the end of the war, he met my mother. And the way he met her was a little strange. She was born in 1925. And she was born in Germany, and her mother got divorced and got married to another man. It was my opa, and he was a great guy. But the thing was, she grew up in an era in which it was expected, when she got to be a teenager, the Nazis were coming into power. And so it was expected that she would be part of at least part of the Army, which she had to join the Army. And so she did as a secretary. So she was a secretary with the German Army. She never really wanted to. And my Oma, bless her heart, everybody had to have a picture of Hitler up in their living room. And she made sure it was there. And my Opa was so mad about it. He couldn't stand the man. He got so mad about it, he took the picture down and he threw it out the window. And it went down and landed on the front steps of the building. My Oma just jumped up and ran out the door, had on her night clothes, ran out into the front yard, grabbed it up and brought it back in and just wailed him with it and said, "Don't you ever do that again." She said, "We need to live." But I'll tell you more about their experiences too. I had some stories that my mother told me about them. But we're talking about how my mom and dad met. So my mother was a German soldier, a secretary, and so she gave herself up when things started to go south, right? And she gave herself up to the Italians. And, to the French. She gave herself up to the French, and she was in a French prison of war camp. And then they decided they were going to transfer her from this French prisoner of war camp to an American prisoner of war camp. And she said she got on the truck. There was a big truck with a bunch of Germans on it. And when she had been inside the French camp, she would trade with them. She got rations inside the camp, and she would trade those rations for cigarettes, right? So they would get food and she would get cigarettes. So she would trade them through the fence. And they were all really nice to her. She said when they got on the truck to go to the American POW camp, they spit at her and couldn't stand her. She said she couldn't stand French people after that at all. So she went to the American prisoner of war camp, and my father met her through the fence. Just like she was trading with the French, she was trading with him. And he was bringing her, candy and stuff because she was a very beautiful woman at that time. She was maybe 20, and he was maybe 25. And she was a beautiful woman. And when she got out of the camp, they went to get married. They decided they were going to get married. So they went to a priest and got married in Germany. And at the time, that seemed like the thing to do. But when he got back to the base, he found out that was not legal for him to marry a German citizen unless it was done by an army chaplain. So he said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll get married through a chaplain." So they went to the chaplain and they got married, and he took his paperwork over to a sergeant that had to process it so that my mother and at that point, my mother and my older brother, he was the only one born then, could get on board the ship to then go to America. So I wanted to insert something here that was a very important aspect to the story about my mother and father and not having the paperwork. As it turned out, the sergeant who they had turned it into was in love with my mother. And so he took the paperwork and he threw it in the trash. So my father got on board the first ship, and he had to go to Norfolk. And he went across to Norfolk. And my mom went to get on board the ship, and they said they didn't have any paperwork for her. So she calls my dad in America and says, "Hey, I don't know what happened, but I can't get on. They don't even know who I am, and they don't have any paperwork on me." So my father has to get on board a ship and come back to Germany. Now, all of this seems like, oh, well, he went over and then came right back and it happened in a couple of weeks. We, in our terms, we get on board a plane and just, go back, and within a couple of days, everything be straightened out, right? No, that's not how it worked. It took him a couple of years before he could get back and get her over there, and they had to go back. He had to go back to Germany, and when he finally got back to Germany, they had to get married a third time. And I always say, I guess I should be here. I guess there's a reason for me being here, right? So anyway, yeah, they got married a third time, and they came back. And what might be interesting to a lot of you is I'm actually a son of an immigrant, okay? Because my father was a citizen, but my mother was his spouse, and she had to come when they came over in the ship. She had to go through Ellis Island, and I looked it up on Ancestry.com, and I actually saw the paperwork from Ellis Island about her coming to America, and so she had to stay in Ellis Island until they let her out, and they both went into America in the 1950s, and it was amazing because all this time had passed, and yet she was still waiting on him, and he was still thinking about her, and all of it seemed to work out, right? How many of you would wait for 2 years for your spouse to come back and think that it was going to happen? Not a lot. I mean, I'm just ballparking here, but maybe not a lot of you. Anyway, my parents were good folks. My dad spent some time over in Germany. And again, when he went back to get her and get the paperwork, they spent some time over there because he had gotten stationed back in Germany at that point. And one of the things that my dad always did was drink a lot. A lot. He loved to drink on the weekends. And he was, again, when the Army Air Force split, he went with the Air Force. So he was stationed back in a base in Germany. And when he went back there, they got a little Opel, little car. They loved it, right? And my mom was telling me that when my dad, he would get drunk and he'd get behind the wheel of this Opel and he'd drive. And she said there was one time they were coming into this intersection, and she said it looked to be about the size of a football field, and there was one light pole all the way in the back of it. There was one light pole all the way in the back of it that, it was a big intersection. And she said he started driving and he was drunk. And she said he could have went any way, but the way he did, he went right into the light pole. I guess because he saw two of them and he thought he'd go between them. I don't know. Anyway, I hope that this is going to be of some interest to you, maybe make you laugh, maybe make you think. I enjoy telling stories, and I enjoy YouTube, and this is what I want to do when I grow up, when I retire and actually get out of the work world, which I am so looking forward to. Don't tell my boss, but I'm very much looking forward to scooting out to the, to doing what I want to do as opposed to what I have to do 40 hours a week. So thank you for listening. I hope this video was enjoyable to you. And if it was, consider subscribing so that we can tell you more stories to come about my life, about my parents' lives, about my brothers' lives, about our whole family. And then we'll start on my wife, and might even talk about where I live too. So I think you might enjoy it. Thanks. See you soon.